I am a funeral director and something has happened. That and a bunch of other super scary Reddit stories coming your way. First one here comes from /Ghost Stories by Operation Tiny 9461, and the title is I'm an Undertaker and something has happened. Something has happened, and I have always been very skeptical until today. I am an Undertaker and I have been for the past 8 years. I have always been skeptical when it comes to the afterlife, especially the paranormal. But today something happened that I cannot explain. I was cleaning unclaimed ashes out of the funeral home where I work. We are moving out of the old Victorian building we operate into a new funeral home. For the past week, I have been making a slow transition, moving out of our current home into our new one. In our basement, we have unclaimed ashes going back as far as the 1970s. I just had my headphones in, putting the boxes into bags so we could send them to a local crematorium for them to be scattered. I must have put away hundreds of boxes of ashes without even thinking about it. I was just listening to a podcast, getting another task ticked off my to-do list. I was putting one box into the bag and I felt my body and brain freeze with the word no, but I didn't hear anything. It's hard to explain what I felt. The best I can explain it is that my own free will had gone and I was ordered to stop what I was doing. I stopped immediately and put the box of ashes in my hand onto another table. It's hard to explain what I felt. The best I can explain is that my own free will had gone and I was ordered to stop what I was doing. I stopped immediately and put the box of ashes in my hand onto the table. On closer inspection, there were 2 boxes I was going to put in 2 separate bags, one small box and one normal size one. Let's just say, for privacy reasons, one box was labeled Hannah Williams. On top of Hannah Williams' ashes, there was a box labeled Baby Williams. I presume they are mother and baby, who I was about to separate into 2 separate bags, which I find quite spooky because I didn't read the labels before. I was doing a mundane task as fast as I could with my existing duties for clearing out the premises. I was just trying to get things done as fast as possible and not paying attention to the names. I just needed to get this done. So yeah, I cannot explain this for the life of me. I cannot come up with an explanation for this. I'm not scared, nor am I excited about what I felt. I just feel confused about the whole situation. Let's read the comments before we get into this. To me, this is a very powerful illustration of the continuation of the consciousness after physical death. Mom didn't want her remains separated from her child and firmly told you so. Simple and profound as that. I think that's really beautiful. See, one fun fact about me, if you've been around for a while, then you know that I collect human ashes or pet ashes. I don't know why. I don't know why I like ashes. I don't understand the feeling. I'm so curious. And hey, maybe if you're watching this, maybe you work at a funeral home, maybe you have unclaimed ashes from a million years ago. Hey, I'll take them. I'll pay shipping. At this point, I have about 4 different people, I think. I know who they are. I don't know. They're like my instant ancestors. I know it's weird. I recently had some ashes were donated and people were tagging me in it and they ended up giving them to me. They waited a while. That's the thing too. This is the fun thing about me collecting ashes. If someone ever showed up and said, hey, I lost track of them, somehow my family ended up with you, I will give them back. But I think this is beautiful. I think that mom in this past life, maybe some residual energy was just like, hey, I need to be with my baby. This is who I am. This is how it is. And honestly, that is pretty special. Next up, we have bought my first house and found out it was haunted. I bought my first house in 2003 and I was over the moon. Shortly after moving in, 2 of my neighbors began joking with me about the ghost in my house. Well, I thought they were joking, so I just played along, pretending I had seen one and that it was no big deal. Well, as time went on to the summer, I met more and more of my neighbors, and they all brought up the same topic. Finally, an elderly woman on the block, who was quite kind and friendly, told me the story after I had asked her. I knew she wasn't going to screw with my head, which is why I asked her in the first place. Turned out the previous owner purchased the home and never lived there because she said it was haunted. Sounds in the night, footsteps and sobbing, and glimpses of a man sitting in the kitchen covered in blood. What? One of my neighbors helped me with the renovations of the house and said that he was putting up drywall when he felt something lift up his dreadlocks. Though I've never had paranormal experiences before and it had been years, and by then I had just chalked it up to night terrors. One day I went to a small neighborhood video store to rent a movie. I had to fill out a form with my demographic data and my credit card info. The owner looked at the form and said, "Oh my God, you live in that house." I asked her what she meant and she explained that her former employee had committed bye-bye in that house. She came to the house as soon as she had heard had been taped off by police as a potential crime scene. She told me that he had just moved into the house with his partner and had called his mom because he wanted to invite her over to meet the partner and to come out to her. This was the early 1990s, and being gay was a big deal. His mother already knew he was gay because he had bought a house with a man and had disowned him right over the phone. That same week, he received a letter from an HIV testing center that stated that he had tested positive for HIV. This is when HIV was a death sentence. He then sat at the kitchen table, ate a bowl of cereal, and went bye-bye. Since then, she has had multiple paranormal experiences in the store, with videos flying off shelves, even levitating off shelves. The most I've ever experienced is sounds at night, sounds of Cheerios being poured into a bowl. I don't eat cereal, the sound of sobbing in the kitchen. I often awaken to both. I remember my grandmother saying, when the dead come to you, they want something, to perform an act of charity in their name or pray for them, so I did. I sat down at the kitchen table one night and lit a candle and told him that each night I would recite a novena prayer for him before a lit candle. On the 9th night of the first novena to the Saint Anthony, patron saint of lost souls, I heard uncontrollable sobbing. I felt a strong presence of grief and despair and the sound of hyperventilating breathing, although somebody could not catch their breath. I sat in the presence of this, knowing that it was not malignant, but rather a connection of intimacy and compassion, of which he was still in need. For 45 days, I said a novena prayer before a lit candle for his soul, and had a mass said in his name. A few times I had awakened to feel his presence standing over my bed, but I knew it was not a malignant presence. This still happens from time to time, but less and less frequently. So we have a top comment here. Oh my, so sad. I feel for this poor lost soul and OP's lost hours of sleep. He was really wanting acceptance from his mama, and that is heartbreaking. Maybe starting a foundation in support of the LGBTQ with HIV or a donation in his honor, that could be sweet and nice. I'm saddened because I'm a mother and I could not imagine turning away any of my babies because of who they are or what they are. I love them with an open heart. It's so unconditional. It's gonna make me cry. Being a mom changes you. And I understand people have beliefs, but like I could never. Remy could say anything and I will love him unconditionally and I will stand by. Obviously there's big bads, killing people or doing bad things to kids, but like I don't care who you love. If you are not hurting anybody, then I hope you have the best time. This is such a sad, beautiful story. It really sounds like a partial residual haunting. He's just reliving the same motion over and over and over again, and that is the saddest thing ever. Next up, the title of this one is interesting. It says, My husband died in 2020. This is /ghost stories, and it is Tink the Chi. My husband died in 2020. After he died, I found a series of very unpleasant things about him. It was devastating, and it took me more than 3 years to come to grips with it. He died in August of 2020, and I sold our condo in June of 2021. He had renovated the entire condo. Kitchen, both bathrooms, flooring, trim, doors, everything. It took nearly 3 years. I have 2 small dogs, and when the realtor told me that somebody was coming to see the property, I took the dogs, locked the door, and went outside. The realtor told me to be out for about 30 minutes. After that period, I went back upstairs. The door was locked. I entered it, and when I did, it looked as if people had been there. Doors were moved, the laundry doors were wide open. I had closed them, they were barn doors. I then got a text from the realtor asking me why I didn't put the key in the lockbox on the main floor outside. The people couldn't get in with their realtor. I'll be honest, I was in a very bad place after he died, particularly after what I found, and thinking in great detail was not something I was doing. I went to the main washroom and saw that the bath mat was sitting over the tub, not the way I left it. I touched it and felt water, almost like someone had just gotten out of the shower and had been standing on it. It was a fairly big apartment, 2 bedrooms, an office, and when the dogs and I were in bed at night, I could hear noises in the kitchen after he died at night. I was too afraid to get out of bed. It was a concrete building, and we couldn't hear anything people were doing in the apartments near us, so hearing something was very unusual. I moved in June of 2021 to a new condo. The first night, I was alone. The dogs were being taken care of. I was lying in bed, not asleep, laying on my side at the edge, and I felt someone brush past me. And a hair actually moved, and it scared the hell out of me. I lay there for a few minutes, afraid to move. Finally, I moved again recently from where I had been living. Last Christmas, I was in bed with the bedroom door open, and I clearly heard 3 knocks on the door. It happened twice, and this also really scared me. I've never been one to think of the spirit world until recently. Last Christmas, I made statements out loud, and I told him to leave me alone. So far, it's all been good, and the last 4 years have been real nice. So then the top comment here is interesting. It says, I hate that I'm more curious about what your late husband did than the way you've had to live after his death. I hope you can find peace now. And damn, we got an OG. The OG poster posted about what her husband actually did. So sit down, it's about to get juicy. I'm not joking about death, but I am freaking curious. My deceased husband and his many secrets. My husband was, by all accounts, in 2020 healthy. He had a cardiac situation that required surgery in August of that year. Complete surprise. He called me at work and he was driving and he said he thought he was having a stroke. He said he had chest pain. I told him it was a heart attack. I asked him to pull over and call 911. I met him in a parking lot. I called 911 because he still hadn't done this. And the EMT came, hooked him up, and promptly told me it wasn't a heart attack, but that he was being taken to the hospital. Before the EMT arrived, he had his phone. I asked him what the code was to open it. He said yes and looked at me and said, "I'm so sorry." We have been together for 10 years. It was a second marriage for both of us. I loved this man with all my heart. He appeared to be treating me well, very well. 9 days later, he was removed from life support. He had incurred several strokes on the operating table. I was devastated. He was 55 and I was nearly 57. His mother and sister came from across country when he was in hospital, and they stayed with me for 3 weeks. One night, a few days after he passed, I found a box of old phones, many phones. He had kept them all. I went through them looking at old texts. At first, it was wonderful. Then, for reasons I can't explain, I went into his call log on the other phone. There's a number that had been calling him every morning on the way to work, and he had been calling them every night on the way home, every workday. Without thinking, I called the phone number from my phone, but it was disconnected. The name Heather popped up on my phone when I called it, and on his phone, it said Heather XXXXXX. I went to his Gmail account. I had never done this before. He left it signed in on his laptop, which had the same code to open it as his phone. I searched for this name, and I found several email messages that he had sent to himself with attachments. He had been having an affair with this woman for 2.5 years. At some point, she had told him that she was pregnant. She was 30, and again, he was 55 when he died. I sat there stunned. I searched through the other phones and found 299 screenshots of BlackBerry conversations in the photo gallery. That number is not an exaggeration. There were 299. They were having freaky time frequently during the day. He was never out at night. He was leaving early for work and driving to her, and they were doing that. He was taking her shopping, out to lunches. She was kind enough to include photos of her at her workplace, and she had her name, so I called there. She sat there stunned in silence as I told her who I was and asked if there was a baby. She blurted out, "No." Months go by. I'm obsessed with this girl. It's affecting my mental health. His daughter came by one night. I recalled a story that he had told me, and she said, "No, that's not right. He told me blank." Something didn't sit right with me, so I reached out to his ex-wife, whom he had been married to for 26 years. We had never met before. He made her out to be a horrible person. She sat and held my hand in the car when we met, and she cried when I told her my story. He had cheated on her as well. The worst part is everything that he had told me about his life was a lie. Everything. He created a fake person, someone he thought I would like, and he lived as that person. He kept me apart from his ex-wife because she could expose him. A year later, I found an appointment card for a therapist he had been seeing. I knew he was in therapy, but he told me it was PTSD. It wasn't. The person he was seeing was a therapist, specializing in sex addiction and affairs. To make a long story short, I ended up calling this person, told him my husband had passed and talking to him. He told me my husband had been having sex with men since his early 20s. He told me he knew about the girlfriend and that she had been pregnant and that my husband rarely talked about her. He knew that my husband was lying a lot of the time. I got STD tested, a full panel of testing, and was devastated. One day I got the negative tests. I drove home sobbing and screaming in the car. Then I found the recordings. He had been recording all of his telephone conversations with everyone for years, and they were on his laptop. The 30-year-old, I had every discussion they'd ever had. He had even recorded their meetings in person. I reached out to her husband because I wanted him to be aware of what I had found, and they had been separated since 2018. I sent him everything I had, recordings, screenshots. He thanks me, and we're still friends to today. He's still single, and so am I. This journey has been devastating and eye-opening. I've learned a lot about narcissistic personality disorder since I found out all of this has been helpful. His therapist kind of told me he didn't love himself, so he couldn't love anybody else. I believe this. Damn! And now he's haunting you from beyond the grave? Damn! I am so sorry. Douche, go away. You made your bed, you lie in it, and hell, sorry. Just, if you don't ruin someone's life just because you hate yourself. You know what I mean? Anyways, let's get into the next one. The title of this is My Son Scares Me.
I hope mine never does.
Hey everyone! So yeah, my child scares me. And there's been a few incidences, but I will share the first one with you. About 2 to 3 years ago, my son, who was 4 at the time, was lying in my bed with me when we were trying to fall asleep. He was doing the usual kid thing, fighting their sleep, rolling around, speaking gibberish, playing with his hands, when all of a sudden he stops and I feel him sit up in the bed. I'm pretending to be asleep, so I just sit and stay quiet. Then I hear him having a conversation, but I can only hear his side. Please God, no, this sounds like me when I was a child.
What did you say? What? I'm trying to go to bed. You go get it. It's downstairs, that way. No, I'm trying to sleep. You go downstairs. What? Ugh, I can't hear you. Come here.
That is when I jumped out of bed and flipped on the bedroom light because he's not about to invite whatever this thing is into bed with us. Sobbing, I asked him, buddy, who are you talking to? And he points to the corner of the room and says, over there. And I said, baby, I cannot see who it is. You need to tell me. Who is it? Is it a boy? A girl? The child looks at me and says,
Monster.
I had a moment where panic ran through me, but growing up, I had many paranormal experiences myself, so I sat with him and I asked him, do you want the monster to leave you alone? He said, yeah. So I had him repeat after me as we told the monster to go away and that he was not welcome in our home. My son decided to end it with, yeah, leave me alone. 2 minutes later, my son was sound asleep. However, I was up for another few hours after that, and this was the beginning of my child saying absolute creepy shit. If you want more, let me know. And in the comments, it says, okay, you can't just give us one story, give us all the creepy stories. And they said, when I was a baby, my mom would call my sister, big age gap, and tell her she didn't know what to do with me. Apparently, I wouldn't sleep at night and I would stay up in my crib, not crying, just baby babbling into nothingness. My brother and I shared a room, but she had the opposite problem with him where she would regularly have to check on him to make sure he was still breathing. He would sleep so deeply. So when she would come to check on him, she would always just hang out with me awake in my crib. Eventually, she gave up and started leaving some toys for me to play with so I wouldn't get bored. Kids are spooky, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if Remy shows up and he's at the side of my bed and he's just like, Mommy, there's a man upstairs. Get in the bed, and I'm sending your dad up. I'm sending him up with a bear mace. I don't want to know. He does sometimes he'll be like eating food, and then he'll like look beyond me and be like, ah, and want to give a spoon to someone who's not there. And I can't tell who it is, and that's what really freaks me out. Next up, we have my dead sister ratted me out to my mom. What? Literally what it says. My older sister passed away at 5 years old, a year before I came along. My mom is super connected to her still to this day, and I have quite a few stories that I could share. This one, though, makes me laugh now. I'm in my 20s. I start smoking, and my mom is very anti-drugs, so I only smoked when she wasn't around. A few days after returning from a night away, she cornered me in the kitchen and told me she had a dream about Tina, my big sister. Tina told her I was smoking wacky tobacco in this dream. Yeah, she wanted to ask me if it was true. I convinced her it was just a weird dream and absolutely was not. Sorry, Mom, we could have moved on. 3 days later, my mom came bursting into my room at 4 a.m. shouting at me that I was lying to her. Tina had come back and told her I was lying and that I am. I had to get up for work at 5, so I got up and made tea because she was really angry, so I confessed all, and she went back to bed annoyed at me for making me doubt my sister more than smoking. So yeah, my dead sister rats me out to my parents. I love how it says, so you still have to put up with a bitchy sister ratting you out even from the afterlife? Oh God, my future's scupped. Jesus. That's really funny. I'm sorry. Your big sister did the right thing. She is protecting you from beyond the grave and there is nothing wrong with that. You should be thankful. You should be thankful that she loves you. Now, last one here, we have my trip to the slaughter yard, a story my mom wouldn't tell me until my 30s. This is coming from /ghost stories from wolf_dream. So let me start off by saying that I enjoy writing, so this will be long, but it is nonfiction though. It will hopefully be an interesting read. I also admit that I have absolutely no memory of this experience. I was a little over 2 years old, and I was just starting to walk on my own when this event took place. My mom only told me this story around 3 years ago when I was 32 and about to get married. My mom was raised in a very tiny fundamentalist Christian community and had no belief in the paranormal. She believed that our souls sleep until Judgment Day or something like that. Ergo, there are no ghost stories or spirits that haunt houses. Even over 30 years later, she still sounded terrified as she told me this. This woman, who always talks way too loud, was literally whispering by the end of it, and she was white as a sheet. I believe her completely and still do. My mom never talks about stuff like this, and I'm just glad I can't remember it too. In 1988, my parents had their second child. This was my brother, Victor. We were very crowded in our rented flat with 2 babies. My parents decided to move to a rambling old 2-story farmhouse on a 7-acre plot in southern Ohio for more room for the family. It was way out in the sticks and took almost an hour to get to from town from there. Mom said the first time I saw the house, I freaked out. I was crying and saying things like, don't like mean house, ugly house, don't like, scary house, mama, don't like. My mom says this behavior was very out of character for me, but I stopped complaining about the house after a few weeks, so she chalked it up to the stress of the move. Now, this house was ramshackle AF and in the middle of nowhere. The kitchen was at the far rear of the house until recently, before we moved in. It still had a working ancient wood-burning cooking stove against the back wall. It had caught the back wall on fire a couple months before we moved in, causing a lot of damage. A lot of this damage wasn't fixed, so my young broke parents got a very cheap rent agreement. Gotta love the 80s. On the second floor, directly above the kitchen, kitchen was a locked room. The landlord claimed it had heavy fire damage, but her son, who had done the repairs, claimed that the only fire damage left was in the kitchen and that it had been the worst beyond his skill level to fix. Either way, the landlord was adamant that the room was off limits. My parents always respected that, and I would have looked 100%. I know all of this because I heard stories about creepy farmhouses with creepy doors my whole life, and there were pictures of us around the farmhouse, and the locked door was right next to the upstairs landing, so there was no avoiding it, and both my parents had told me it had given them the creeps. A few months after we moved in, my mother and I were in the yard with our pit Doberman mix, Boss. She was hanging laundry, and I was rolling around with the dog. She said that just as she noticed, everything went way too silent. Boss started going apeshit from surprisingly far away, about 500 yards from the house on the left. There was a small duck pond. Boss was in between the two, running towards my mom, then turning back and running towards the pond, barking frantically the whole time. My mom saw something thrashing off in the middle of the pond. She took off towards the water full speed. Boss beat her there and drug me out of the water himself. Thank you, Pupper. Although my mom was confused how I gotten so far so fast, and how I got into the center of the pond since it was over my head and I couldn't swim. Glitch in the Matrix. She figured she had underestimated me and now had put me in baby gates and playpens. I was now to be contained from now on. A few weeks later, she was cooking downstairs. Boss was outside, Victor asleep in his crib, and I was in my playpen in my room upstairs. I also had a gate on my door and one at the top of the stairs. The stairs ran from the side of the kitchen. The stairs ran up from the side of the kitchen. So my mom said that she would listen to us crying and fussing while she was cooking. My mom said no longer than 15 minutes after the time she had looked at us kids, Boss started going crazy in the yard. She runs to check on us. Victor is still sleeping, my baby gate still shut and locked, but I am not in my room. The frenzy search reveals that I am not in the house at all. A sudden image of Boss saving me from drowning causes my mom to rush outside to see what he's trying to tell her this time. She said she was running in circles in the yard, barking uncontrollably. When she got outside, he took off towards the right, away from the pond. He would run ahead, turn around and bark at my mother, wait for her to catch up a little bit before racing off again. He ended up leading her almost a mile and a half out onto the dirt road that separated our property from our neighbors. He led her to a thick stand of trees on our neighbor's side of the rocky drive. She said what hit her first was a foul stench of advanced decay. She plowed into the trees with her heart in her throat and her stomach full of ice when she noticed many piles of corrugated tin, tarps, tires, and other debris. The miasma was emanating most strongly from the junkyard Karens. Peeking under a sheet of tin, she discovered an extremely decomposed corpse of a butchered cow. As she headed deeper into the thicket, there were tree cover and it got denser, and she said less care was taken to cover the remains. Grisly pieces of bones and rotted chunks of bovine littered the area. Apparently our neighbor, in an effort to cheat taxes, have been illegally slaughtering cattle and hiding their remains, or at least in the few thick stands of trees around. She found me dead center in the middle of this thicket, just standing there looking around like I was confused. I was surrounded by carnage. She said I didn't seem scared or anything, just standing. She rushed over to me after asserting that I wasn't injured, began questioning me on why I was there and how I got there, etc. Keep in mind, although my mother said I had started speaking very young, I didn't have much vocabulary. She said I told her with a very serious look that only small children can give, and that small children had brought me there, shitting her pants at the thought of anyone, even children, could walk right through the kitchen and get me from upstairs, walk back down past her, through the stairs past her. She demanded to know what children and where the hell they are now. I looked at her dead serious and told her the ones that live with us in the room at the top of the stairs, and that I don't see them anymore. After a moment of stunned silence, she started asking all kinds of questions about these children. However, she told me that I refused to say anything. She said as long as she questioned me about what happened, I would just stand there staring at her with a serious expression with my mouth closed. She said this same pattern held very true to the other time she brought it up, and that she was always left wondering, and immediately began hounding my dad about moving closer to town. While the incident with me getting into the pond was highly unlikely, it was at least remotely possible. My mother is adamant, with me being in the hidden slaughter yard, that was flat out impossible. She said that there is no way I could have even known it was there, much less have the ability to open and relock the baby gates, get downstairs past her, and end up almost 2 miles down the road in this place under 15 minutes. I was only 2, slow and clumsy as most toddlers. As I said, she was still shaken by it after 30 years. Personally, I have no idea what happened that day. I've thought about hypnosis, but I haven't decided if I really want to remember. Maybe it's better to let it be a mystery, because whatever the fuck those things were, I really don't think they were children. That's terrifying. Top comment. This is the content I subscribe for. I can't imagine how it was for your poor mom. She must have been out of her mind with terror, and your dog deserves a medal for being the goodest boy ever. This person said, thank you for the compliment. She's still scared to mention to it this day. She only told me this and hates when I bring it up. He was the best boy. I have a picture of him hanging up and playing in the yard together after all these years. And this one says the story's so well written. I absolutely love it. Your poor mama must have been so scared. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Why isn't the door been opened? Can you go to the house now? Talk. I need to know. I need to know. Please come back and tell me so I can let everybody know in the next episode. I hope you have enjoyed this scary Reddit story. If you have links to other scary Reddit stories, drop in the comments below. If you have things I want to read about, tell me. If you enjoy these videos, tell me. No matter what, it means so much to me if you would just hit that thumbs up and make sure you check out Hollow, my book. It made the New York Times bestseller list, which is freaking crazy. Until next time, I love you. Stay spooky, Boo Crew. Mwah!